Kayleigh, I don't want to be surprised or blindsided in November. Should we be honest now and say, are we in danger?
When even the hosts of the Fox show The Five are willing to admit on air how worried they are about the midterms, you know things are going bad for the president. It's frankly stunning to hear a word of truth out of one of the pro-Trump five, because they usually do whatever they can to toe the party line. Here he is, and they are admitting that the midterms may very well be a disaster for the Republicans, because even before the Iranian war, internal Democrat polling was showing it was going to be a blue tsunami. Only Democrats have flipped seats since the 2024 election.
Looking at Texas, though, I mean, that should scare Republicans. That was the point that Ron DeSantis made in a post. You know, that seat, that state Senate seat, flipped. It was a district that the president won by 17 points, and the Republican had outspent the Democrat there 20-1. And still, you know, the Democrat took that seat. Ron DeSantis wrote, special elections are quirky, not necessarily projectable regarding a general election. That said, a swing of this magnitude is not something that can be dismissed. Republicans should be clear-eyed about the political environment heading into the midterms.
That's exactly right. Texas 9, because what happened in Texas 9? It didn't just swing to the left. It took a rocket ship to the left. My goodness gracious, the Texas 9 Senate district election marches. This was a district that Donald Trump won by 17 points.
Republicans have flipped 0 seats. In fact, instead you have Republicans retiring and deciding not to run for re-election in droves because they realize how hard it will be to win in these midterms.
Kayleigh, I don't want to be surprised or blindsided in November. Should we be honest now and say, are we in danger?
Yeah, we are. If you look at historical trends, absolutely. The party that's governing wins choices. It tends to be a referendum on that party and they lose seats. So absolutely, it's an uphill battle and we have to be frank about that. But here's where I disagree with Harold. Elections are not referendums, they are choices. And when you look at the polling when given a choice, Republican, Democrat, this is an NBC poll, Republicans are beating Democrats plus 27 on border security, plus 22 on crime, plus 8 on immigration, and it's even on the economy. So if Republicans can litigate the issues and not the distractions, they end up winning. To Joe Manchin's point, as he told me on Saturday, he said if Democrats want to ever control again or be the majority or have a president who's a Democrat, they have to get with commonality of what is going on. You got to listen to guys like John Fetterman, not guys like Chuck Schumer. But John Fetterman is dismissed out of hand by party leaders like James Carville, among others. And, you know, secondly, I would just say Jim Messina has a point. What's the governing strategy of Democrats? Because you could win this election. You could win the midterms because it's a historical trend and, you know, TDS is your strategy, but TDS cannot be the strategy in 2028. That's not going to take you to the promised land. And finally, I would just say Democrats have to figure out where are they on Medicare for all. The left wing of the party wants that. The mainstream does not. Where are they on Israel? Where are they on government-run grocery stores? They've got a lot of divisions to work through. So for all the Republicans problems Republicans have,
I'm for Israel.
Democrats.
I mean, we can answer those
You're the
questions.
Fetterman wing. That's, you know, the smarter wing.
And here you have friendly anchor in Ducey and Fox asking Trump about, hey, did you not think about the fact that maybe Iran would hit the Gulf state allies in the region if we attacked Iran? Take a listen to what Trump has to say.
Thank you. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that might be their retaliation?
No. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit. They were, I wouldn't say friendly countries. They were like neutral. They lived with them for years. Peter, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel with their nuclear weapon. But after we knocked out their nuclear potential weapon, they started building missiles, thousands and thousands of missiles. And they were going to do it with missiles while they developed. These are sick people. While they developed nuclear, somehow they were going to start at a different site because that site was, you saw the site, the mountain. They were going to go into a certain area, which we know exactly where it is. And they were going to do that. And it's incredible what we've done. I tell you, the job we've done. You know,
we know Trump lies, and he likes to lie, especially to the American people. And frankly, there should be a law banning American public officials from lying to the public. In fact, they just passed a similar law in Wales regarding that. But as of now, somebody could sit in that Oval Office and lie to the American people at will. And Trump certainly takes advantage of that. He is having a really hard time selling the lie that it was out of the blue that Iran was going to strike our allies, the Gulf states in the region, if indeed we hit them militarily. So much so that even there was a note on the social media clip that was sent around about Trump saying that it was never all the experts in the world. Nobody had thought Iran was going to do that. Well, there was a reader statement on there that said, quote, that there was an article that was published 4 days before we went to war with Iran that said the exact opposite. It said, quote, why Iran will escalate, by Nate Swanson. He was a longtime Iranian policy advisor and analyst, and it was published on February 24th, 2026, 4 days before we struck Iran. This is readers putting that context on that social media post, not Democrats, not liberals, readers who put on it, because it is that easy to fact check that. Not only that, the Gulf countries, the Gulf states have been urging Trump to not strike Iran for quite some time. Back in January, it's reported that they urged restraint. They didn't publicly speak out regarding the protests in Iran. They believed that if we struck Iran, that Iran would retaliate against them, that they were worried that their strategic oil sites would get struck. They were worried that this would hurt their economy, would worry that even if Iran had a regime collapse, that would create chaos in the region. We're not at the Iranian regime collapse, but everything else has come true. I mean, you have now airports, Qatar, and other places being shut down, airplanes sitting in airports around the world. So many airports have been closed, airlines not flying to places throughout the Middle East. It has been devastating on the economy of UAE and Qatar, countries that have spent billions of dollars in order to try to attract tourism, the kind of capitalism that America believes in. This is an example of Arab capitalism. What you think or don't think about the countries and the governments there, that was their attempt to have economic development, which in short order was destroyed because people on their honeymoon don't want to have to worry about missile attacks.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere. I am tired of the industrial war complex getting all of our hard-earned tax dollars. I have folks in Colorado who can't afford to live. We need America First policies right now, and that I'm not doing that. We need the Save America Act, FISA with warrants. There's a lot of hard lines that I have right now, and we've got to get our act together if we want to keep this majority. And the path that we're going doesn't look very promising.
Should the administration get out of Iran?
That's up to the president.
So when Trump says that nobody could guess that this was going to happen, those countries that have been hit, those Gulf states, specifically urged Trump not to do this because they were worried about exactly this happening. Reuters is reporting that, in fact, Trump was briefed about the fact that Iran would likely retaliate against its neighbors and close the strait. Well, even more disturbing, perhaps, is that Tulsi Gabbard, the National Intelligence Director, went to Congress and was asked by Senator Ossoff whether or not there was an imminent threat from Iran. I mean, this is why Trump is saying, evidently, we had to strike first. And she could not answer that question. She said that it was up to the determination of the president of whether or not there was an imminent threat, despite the fact that it's really based on her intelligence gathering, the evidence, so to speak, that you could then use for an opinion of whether or not there was an imminent threat. The fact that she could not answer that question with a yes she could not say that there was an imminent threat, but instead deferred it and deflected it, is so disturbing, because it really means that no, there was not an imminent threat, and that she knows that if she said yes, that she could open herself up to a perjury charge or anything else. Like, she doesn't want to be the Colin Powell who goes in front of the hearings and says that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. So instead, she just deflects it, despite the fact that it's her department that's supposed to be in charge of deciding whether or not there's a reason to go to war.
Under the law, you are responsible for providing national intelligence to the president, correct?
Yes.
And to the heads of executive branch departments and agencies, yes?
Yes.
And to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior military commanders?
Across the IC, yes.
And to the Senate and the House and relevant committees, correct?
Yes.
And the law states that the national intelligence you provide to Congress, quote, should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations, correct?
Yes.
And you noted in your opening statement you're here fulfilling a statutory responsibility and that your testimony, quote, represents the IC's assessment of threats,
That's right.
correct? That opening statement, as submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, stated that as a result of last summer's airstrikes, quote, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And is that in fact the assessment of the intelligence community?
Yes.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes.
Yes.
In the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to the president
here's the problem.
based on a volume of information
it is precisely
that he receives.
It is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing.
So her inability to say yes in itself is an answer, and a very disturbing answer at that.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.